Why, hello there everyone. I'm Laxow, aka the Kumo Sensei. Minasan, ohayo gozaimasu. And today we're focusing on rehousing some M. balfouri, also known as the Monocentropus balfouri, or you guys know as the Socotra Island blue-leg baboon tarantula. Man, that's actually a very long name, for a common name that is. But let us not get sidetracked. Today we're focusing on rehousing these juvenile M. balfouris. And as stated before, I do have a lot of these specimens because I do breed them on a yearly basis or a bi-yearly basis, but it really just comes down to if I have the space and the affordability to actually produce more. Now just recently here on the channel, I bred 2 females this year, and believe it or not, one of them already have an egg sac already. So yeah, I know I don't seem too surprised when it comes to finding egg sacs or when a tarantula makes an egg sac, and that's because I'm a tarantula breeder, so I kind of see them on a yearly basis, so for me it's not anything like, wow, that's spectacular. Now hear me out guys, the true joy of every tarantula breeder is when you actually see the offspring. Not the egg sac, but the final product, the babies, because that tells you that the process is now pretty much done. And honestly, that is where the joy comes in for me, because while people do like seeing the egg sac, that's not really the final process. The true final process is actually getting slings, and that's the real fun. Because now you can spend hours on hours just trying to feed them all and lose sleep, just like me. But that's what we do guys, we breed and we produce more for the hobby and more for people to have them. Now a lot of you may be wondering why I do not keep mine communal, and the answer is simple. I'm a tarantula breeder. It's as simple as that. If I kept all my M. balfouri as a communal, and if I was to breed them, I will not know which female was bred, when, and what dates, and it'll actually be hard to identify which is which and which one I bred. So for us tarantula breeders, usually we just kind of keep them separate. Now some tarantula breeders may have communals, and relatively giant communals actually, but it's more so of a flex just to show off that hey, I have all of these specimens, rather than actually breeding them. And honestly, I'm fine with that either way. But for us tarantula breeders, the majority of us that is, we usually just keep them individually, just so we can keep records more accurate. But that's just for me honestly. So let us get back into more M. balfouri talk. Now I do have 2 more females that have matured recently. The question is, will I breed them? And as of now, and as where it stands, probably not, because I don't really have the space maybe. I mean, I probably could breed them, but I'm not sure if I will breed them this year. Maybe give them another molt or 2, or maybe the next year or so. It really just depends guys. Let us wait and see. And as stated before guys, I'm in no hurry when it comes to breeding the species, because a lot of tarantula breeders, if not pretty much almost every tarantula breeder, is working with the species because they're easy to breed, you can keep them in large numbers and communals, and they're not relatively hard to find, and they're pretty much everywhere actually. You can buy slings for around $40 here in the United States hobby. So essentially everyone, where I'm getting at is that this species is going nowhere anytime soon. I promise you guys, you don't have to wait for me to actually breed this species, because I promise you other tarantula breeders are on the work. Now I've just recently bred 2 of my females, and now I have 2 more females that are ready to breed, so in total 4 mature females. Now for the 2 females I did breed, I don't really know how many slings I'll keep if there's an egg sac. I may just keep all of them this time around because I really want to grow my collection, so that way I can start a tarantula business in the future, using them as a foundation. Or maybe I'll just do like the typical, where I keep most of my slings, wholesale some away, and then just give some out for free to other tarantula breeders. I don't know honestly, let us wait and see. Now when it comes to the normal hobbyists, the non-tarantula breeders, just the typical hobbyists having fun, they'll probably want to keep every single sling they could get, but I have to say man, the numbers will overwhelm you, especially once they grow bigger, because they'll take up more space. So for us tarantula breeders, although we do have a lot of tarantulas, we have to kind of pick and choose what we want to breed and what we want to keep. And trust me, it sounds simple, but I promise you it's more complicated than you think, because remember, we have multiple species that we've bred that year. So we're just going down the list. Look, what I'm trying to say is that even I struggle at times to actually pick and choose what I want to keep, okay? Yes, a tarantula breeder that's been doing this for a while now still doesn't know what he wants to keep and what he wants to sell at times. The struggles of being a tarantula breeder. Now look, I'm not saying I struggle all the time, okay guys, so don't take it that way. It only happens very rarely now. I think it was more of a struggle back then when you first started, or when I first started, that is. But now it's much more easier to pick and choose what I want to do. But just to let you know guys, you don't want to keep everything you produce. Trust me, on paper it seems like a great idea, but in practice it really isn't. So for me, what I've learned is that when it comes to the hobby staples, your typical Brachypemas, Grammostolas, curly hairs, pink toes, any common species, you typically want to get rid of as many as you can, because those species are very common and they're very saturated. So what I recommend is to try to get rid of as many as you can. And that part is going to be very difficult, especially for those people who have species that are very saturated, like those I stated just now. Now, in my experience, new tarantula breeders usually struggle with this issue because they want to keep pretty much everything they produce. And usually, for most tarantula breeders, their first breeding projects are usually some of the hobby staples. But hey, it's all preference at the end of the day. You're free to keep and sell whatever you like and whatever you produce. Every tarantula breeder has their own perspective and ways of doing it. As for me and these balfouris, I'm never on a shortage, so I think I'll be fine for the most part when it comes to these balfouri. It does take a while to actually grow out the species, because this species' growth rate is somewhere between medium to medium slow, so it's kind of an investment species to an extent. Now granted, for me the reason why it's not a problem is because I produce this yearly or bi-yearly, and I produce them frequently, and I have multiple females and males, and I know where to source more if I need more. So for me, honestly, it's not a struggle, but for the newer tarantula breeder, it could be a bit of an investment in terms of time to actually grow out the species from a sling. Now in my experience, from growing a sling to an adult female, it was about 3.5 years at quickest. And honestly, to some people that might be a short amount of time, and for others it may be a very long time. It depends on how you look at 3 years, but that is the fastest I can grow out a sling to an adult female. Now when it comes to the males, they don't actually take as much time as the females. I'd say 2 years at shortest, maybe 1.5 years if you're super lucky I guess, to get a mature male. But then he might be very tiny, because I have seen very large and very tiny mature males, which is pretty interesting in terms of size comparisons. I've seen a mature male as small as 3.5 inches. And I've seen a large mature male, as in 5.5 inches in leg span, which is honestly very interesting in terms of how diverse the sizes are for the mature males. But I would like to hear what everybody thinks. Is it worth it to wait, a few years to grow out a specimen? Or is it a better choice to just buy a mature pair or a mature female or anything of that matter? Let me know down below. Now when it comes to me, honestly, if I have a mature female already and no males, then I'll just take the chance of buying more juveniles or slings that are unsexed and just growing them out. Now if I have a mature male, usually I try to loan him out to another experienced tarantula breeder, or I'll try to buy a mature female myself. I still do buy slings though, just not as common as I used to I guess. But anyhow though, I think I'll end this here for today's video. And yeah, it's just the typical everyone. Like, comment, subscribe, and whatnot. I have a lot more to do, guys. I know it doesn't seem like that, but trust me, behind the scenes, there's a lot that I really want to do, and honestly, I wish I have more time. But yeah, with that everyone, stay lax, and Laxow out from the Kumo Sensei.